Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I know it's late in the evening, and tomorrow there's a fantastic show, the Ai4 Finance. Thanks, Ai4 Finance team, for having us here. Amazing afternoon workshop. How many of you were at the workshop earlier? Few good hands. I was there in the beginning and I ran away. But I trust the good hands of Arno to get you through it. But I will try and give a little description of what the world saw in the morning, what we announced, which is our vision to make every company an AI company. We are on a mission where AI is going to touch every walk of life, and the haves and the have-nots. And if anything, the world is getting disparate, like very much and much more separated and segregated. We want to bring it together, both in a very universal way. Math is AI, and math is a universe. We have been past that over the centuries, not just the last few 10, 20 decades. So we think that AI belongs to the people. And so that's the core mission with which we started. That's how we got democratize. For us means make it faster, cheaper, and easier, so most people can use and take advantage of this wonderful, wonderful thing that's been passed on to us over the generations. I don't have only one slide, though I will start with thank you. I remember many years ago at a keynote at a customer's, Capital One, we started with the thank you slide. And everyone thought I had the wrong order of the slides. But thank you for being here. Thank you it's this nothing but joy and gratitude for everything that's happened over the last 6, 7 years. You remember that famous hip-hop song, It Was All a Dream? It was really all a dream. And over the years, step by step, we got several friends. And the friends came from nowhere. They sprouted and came up and joined that journey. Data science was this corner thing that the quants, the people nobody wanted to talk to. The data scientists are passionate about truth, and truth is often sour, right? It's bitter. It hits you. And so people don't want to really talk to the person who's going to show them the mirror, right? And data scientists have that unfortunate burden of telling the truth. And so that's kind of why we wanted to support their cause, to make them heroes, make them happy, which is actually a little hard, but we try. So that's kind of how we started all our journey. I just see a customer walking through the door, and I was just talking about the same conference where we presented the same slides, and thanks, Adam, and several other customers in the audience. We are here because of you, because of your trust in us, and because how you partnered with us. Historically, when you build a product, a company, you treat them as a vendor, then you slowly have to earn your wings to build that trust. We were really, really fortunate for customer love. Customers really they gave us their hand, we walked, and the rest is history in many ways. And most importantly, they were willing to bet on it. Entrepreneurship is how many of you are in startup? See, it's a minority. Oh, congratulations. How many of you are in a large company or reasonably large company? Entrepreneurship is far harder, much, much, much more harder than entrepreneurship. Founders get a lot of kudos, but really, when you're trying to bring change in a very large organization, it's really difficult. It's almost like the first man who invents fire is almost burnt alive, right? It's the second one who watches that will say, "Oh, wow, this works." So usually when people bet on us, like even the beginning of this year to over the last 5, 6 years, they were like risking a lot of things. So kudos to the team who supported me to make that trust, to build that products that actually measured up to the trust and make them happier. So then that whole flywheel started. And today, we are fortunate to have customers lead our second round back-to-back and make us want to go build a larger organization. So we are kind of fortunate for that love. Thank you, customers. And of course, the team, they have very stiff deadlines. And so there's only one way that those deadlines can be met, because we have to empower the makers. And so really, H2O is really 175 leaders on the floor, right? Every one of them they own the movement. And even one of us is enough to go take a whole army down, right? And how can they do that, right? So they usually ask, how do people beat time? There's only one force in this world that beats time, and that is love, right? Because they're extremely passionate about what they're doing. And my goal is to just give them that, empower them, and get out of the way, because they are going very fast, like rapids, right? And so the way we instilled this is that every one of us is bought into the company. We are not employees or owners. We are democratized. I think of the team as the shareholders, the common shareholders in the company, right? Every one of them. And that makes them own a piece of H2O. And it's not just the quantified how big it will be in the future. The fact that they own that corner, that brick in that busy Times Square, makes them want to say, I want to make H2O bigger, right? And that's a very different way of managing. We build leaders. We are not looking for people who will say what to do next. They are telling me what to do next, right? And that's the kind of culture H2O has. And that's the culture that's infectious, because love actually is easy to infect. Just like fear, unfortunately, love is also easy to infect. And then you just have to get that momentum across the community. Our community has been loving us when we're doing free stuff, and now they're loving us even when we are giving them a reason to pay for our products. But what we have learned is that open source is a great way to build freedom and love. And you can't really combine create forces that destroy freedom. Love actually triumphs in freedom. And so open source for us came back in the new architecture, right? So what really transpired in the last 6 months, I would say, is trying to bring open source on top of the closed source platform we had released in Driverless AI. So what you're seeing is in the bring your own recipes, we are allowing open source recipes and closed source recipes to combine and become part of the base kernel or base kernel that's optimizing the machine learning for you. So the big aha, and this was the original design. This is 2017 slide, unchanged. But when we saw Ediz, who's in the audience, I'll slowly pull him up to stage. When he heard Ediz ask us, can I compete with your grandmasters, right? So H2O has the world's highest number of grandmasters in any single company. Can I compete with your grandmasters digitally, right? So here's a data scientist in the field and a domain expert saying, I want to bring my smarts and bring it into your platform, and can I now compete with your guys and see if my idea is better than your ideas in a democratic, competition for accuracy fashion. So let me show what that really means, and then we'll get into kind of how it works, right? And then of course it's a teaser. Tomorrow there's a keynote, but it's a teaser. So hopefully we are able to kind of get past all the details. But let me showcase what we mean by these recipes. So here's, we'll take the classic quintessential example. I don't know if you ran this one earlier. The credit card training and test data set, right? Predicting who will default payment next, right? And this owed to kind of our grassroots, which we came from credit card space. So this is the expert settings, right? Historically, we would have there are 3 big knobs: accuracy, time, accuracy and speed. That's the coin currency of our space. And then interpretability. How do I understand the model? Can I tell a story from the model? But what we have now added is a way to bring recipes into from external recipes into a closed source product line. And what this does essentially is, that, for example, I'll take a numeric recipe. These are all 100%, these are kind of Apache V2 open source recipes, about 100 of them that we published, 95, 5 less. We need audience to contribute before my keynote tomorrow. So today's workshop will hopefully get some pull requests. So you take these recipes, they're all interesting ones. Let me take a simple transformer one here, NLP, right? Sort of Facebook just released the latest BERT model, right? To understand language, so you want to reuse those models, right? Sort of the pre-trained models. You can take it from here, right? You can bring that out of kind of the latest public domain, start working with the core model. Arima, someone said, Prophet is doing very well. Prophet from Facebook, again, another Facebook model. Well, you can stitch it here. You have your own great quant inside your company trying to build his own machine learning model, a tweak on XGBoost or a tweak on Random Forest. You want to bring that in. You don't have to kind of give that code to us. You can actually collaborate live and bring your AI and our AI together, right? A classic example, let me take the Singapore version here, Singapore holidays. Let's see. So here's, you're selling in Asia, and in Asian markets, of course, they have holidays that they follow. Hindu holidays, they follow Christian holidays, they follow American holidays, as well as Chinese holidays. So how do you do that? You can now augment that specialized holidays into a traditional way of these holidays typically would have only support for American holidays. Now you can change that here. So fundamentally, it's taking us to the next level where transformations don't have to wait for the back-end developer to improve. I'm going to take this interesting one, which is log transformations, all numbers. I usually joke with my sales team that we only care for the commas, not the number of zeros. So this is actually taking that log transformation, adding it, and essentially bringing it into the actual core recipes, right? So my log becomes an addition that you can bring in here. I think I need to enable it from the recipe architecture, which is a good way to demonstrate all the various recipes the team has been building over the. You see AML here, that's anti-money laundering recipes. I'm going to run one of them. So my log transformer can now, or Singapore public holiday transformer, I can enable them and then launch. Right? So that's, the idea is that you can start having your own GitHub of small techniques that you've learned over the years, and then bring them into this backend and start launching. So Singapore public holiday, my log feature engineering is now part of the core machine learning experience. So this is essentially brings you back to where you then automate how the search space, so the genetic algorithm, the searching for the best feature in transformation, and the best algorithm and its parameter is now this machine, but you're really focusing on bringing your domain expertise. Historically, automatic machine learning and data scientists took, the data science world took a view that domain scientists and domain experts, they're competing against each other, right? Sort of the money ball for business means the data scientists are taking over traditional expertise. What we are saying is you can collaborate. You can bring that. Take this tool. The science is in a box. Now you can apply your imagination and take it to transform different businesses. While this is running, I want to show one other piece that the team has been working on, and that is how to explain a model, right? Sort of, someone built this model. This is actually a Walmart weekly sales prediction. We just came from the from a lot of earnings that came out from the retail world. Someone built this model. You want to trust it. So how do you trust it? Well, you want to see if did he use all the best techniques? So what the team put together is a simple way to produce a report, right? Sort of, you can generate a report automatically and look at what was the methodology used. Now, this is very, very important in the compliance-rich spaces, right? You want to be able to use this and apply kind of what was the drift. Was there enough drift in the data? What was the pipeline used? Right. Sort of you see the various. I'm going to scroll here fast to showcase what was the methodology and what was the pipeline. Right. So now again, if someone produces this kind of document, you begin to trust. What did it really do? When I was like, you hired a naive new data scientist, you want to get consistency across the organization for different modeling, because again, you have a fast car, you want to make sure it's on the right track, right? So this is producing entire documentation, including description of how the feature, what does the feature mean, so you can then take it to where you really want to, right? Sort of now. That's great. Now I want to build a pipeline. So we produce an automatic pipeline. You can deploy that either on the cloud or locally on a REST server, right? So then you can essentially go from building the model, training the model, then the scoring engines, and then deploying it. And some of you will rightfully say, can I now observe this and see when it's drifting, when I need to rebuild it? Interpretation of the model is just as important, right? Because unless you can tell a great story from your model, the business guy is not going to listen to it. So telling the story and why did something go up, why did something go down, is just as powerful. So that's machine learning interpretability, and explainability is a cornerstone for a lot of work we are doing. Please come to H2O World on October 22nd. It's a big section on explainability, and so we are going to start building a lot of grassroots momentum and working closely with the industry to make sure explainability is, people can build that trust in AI. Explainability is being able to understand what were the big parameters. I think I have, the computer is a little bit frozen here. Let me just try and. The next steps for us here is going to work with a lot of our customers and co-invent a lot of the kind of the vertical AI. Vertical AI is where we go from the horizontal platform to help our customers take the platform and not worry about the engineering processes that are necessary before you can get into I think the computer is probably fried, so I'll leave the computer here. Basically, our vision here is to make sure you can take our platform and not worry about what is the best-in-class compiler. Should I use FPGAs? Should I use GPUs? Should I use CPUs? Should I use cloud on-prem? That's a decision that you don't want the domain and the business expert worry about. The second level of that is which algorithm to use. Should I use GVMs? Should I use H2O3? Should I use TensorFlow? Should I use should I go to the latest GBM, light GBM? Should I use all these random forests? Should I use TensorFlow or PyTorch? That again becomes a very simple, we do the curation for you. The layer above, feature transformations. Should I apply a cross-validated target encoding? Should I convert my numericals to categoricals or categoricals to numericals? I have a sparse space. Again, that's curated for you. Should I now start applying transformation for my different zip codes? How do I treat a busy zip code like this versus how do I treat a sparse zip code in the middle of Kansas? That's a feature transformation. In fact, one of the 100 free open source recipes is actually doing exactly that, right? So then you can pull that in. So slowly, one by one, we made it nearly automatic. It's still semi-automatic. Think of that as a power tool you have at your hands, and then verticalize it. And we're going to talk at length with Ediz on how he's planning to verticalize this for securities and equities. But think about it as if you can change pricing, right? So how do you improve pricing on whether it's pricing in the securities space, bonds, to pricing of products, in retail products, especially given if such a thing happens, if goods from China become expensive, how should I price my product? That's a big data-driven decision one has to make. And to do that, you need a lot of analysis and simulations and change data sets and play with it. And that kind of rapid adaptation to the markets will lead to real outcome for your business. We're working with NLP. A lot of the time, you're building transfer learning models, right? So you build those models based on your customer conversations from your support side. Can I apply that on my sales side or marketing side, right? That kind of transfer learning, build those models, plug that in. Again, we are trying to slowly evolve the product to help businesses build their own AI. We are an AI software company. It's true for a lot of the software companies out there, but many of those software companies have data on their side, right? And their real mission is to take advantage of your data. The only data they don't have is the enterprise data, right? And what they don't have is your brands. And what AI is really doing is empowering you to protect your brand with your data, right? And so our mission is to be that partner who you can trust to build your own AI. And our vision is complete when I have two missions for H2O, right? Our mission is complete when you are the AI superpowers, right? So then we have the same diversity, the same democratic power that is needed to create a very rich marketplace with a lot of innovation and a lot of imagination. We secretly hope that lots of entrepreneurs will spring with their business ideas and not worried about how to build AI, because this is available for you. We almost commodified it to a degree where it's faster, cheaper, and easier, and open. A lot of that stuff is also open. We are free for academic use. If you're a student in the audience, how many students in the audience? Every one of you are students. I'm a student too. We got to be learning till we die. Otherwise, we'll get old, right? So all students, it's free for academic use. Use it and then tell us, like, right, well, I need to use it for my startup. Okay, so talk to Ingrid, she has a startup plan, right? Build, and as you try to change the world, it's amazing how fast it comes back, right? So that's our mission, is to trigger that, spark that creativity and imagination in everyone, so that they can start using AI as their co-founder, the technical co-founder, H2O as your partner in that, and go build great things. Right? That's roughly how we built And the third one, I hope, is that one day we'll have an AI program running 98% of H2O, so then I can spend more time with cocktails. Right. Without further ado, let me invite my amazing partner in building this, Ediz Ozkaya, Head of Machine Learning from Goldman Sachs. Thank you. Thanks, Dimitri. This is a fireside chat, so we'll have room for questions. But if you have any questions along the way, please either send it to Slido or to Ian. Welcome.
Hello, Shri. Nice to see you again.
It's been time is relative, as I say. Even though we've been short time, we spent tremendous amount of co-creation. And co-creation with a customer is a unique signature for the H2O team, and that's been part of our culture. But tell us about the challenges you face in using machine learning in capital markets.
Yeah, we are a machine learning team for the Securities division. That's effectively the revenue division that touches capital markets. It's a pretty sizable division, and my team is quite small. It's driving the innovation in the AI space. So I think one thing that's contrasting to other maybe machine learning teams that are central to their organizations is effectively the fact that we do sit in the revenue division. That means every single person, each machine learning researcher or data science has the bottom line responsibility. So that's a space where return on investment effectively.
Is it 10x, or like for every dollar do you need to make $10 million?
So there is a multiplier. I think that's probably the industry average, and you are judged by that. So effectively there is a standard, and we need to keep up with that. So yeah, when I started doing this 4 years ago, I thought I'm going to have a big team of researchers. I'm going to do open-ended experiments around there. It wasn't like that. It was very, very conscious of the cost. So that puts a lot of pressure on how quickly we experiment. And given that the ideas in the field are increasing exponentially, the effort we make to keep on top of the literature and quickly test what's emerging and seeing whether these are relevant to our business and applying these models quickly to our business to create bottom line impact is extremely challenging. And one key parameter here is how quickly you experiment and put ideas in action and productionize them as well in a very compliance conscious environment. So these are many, many constraints.
One of the KPIs we think of AI or data science is the cost of doing an experiment. If you can do 1,000 experiments in a week, it's very inexpensive. So you can actually do more, and then those entrepreneurs I was talking about don't have that cost of failure, because they're thinking that failure is a step to learn the next new thing, as opposed to being worried about failure. So reducing the cost of an experiment is one of the core aspects of democratization.
Absolutely, that's spot on. So in terms of learning about new things, you cannot not have failure in the picture. So we should fail, and we should succeed very quickly. That means we should fail very quickly when we do. Yeah. So this is that fail quick approach that we had to develop. Just to give you an idea, when we started each experiment, and the way I describe an experiment is not a single run of hyperparameter optimization, but it's more like taking an idea from a research paper and actually implementing it in details to see whether that's going to be applicable to our business, right? So that cycle used to be around 6 months' time. And if the data is hierarchical data, then it could even take longer. And now we are down to more recently around 2 weeks type of time to test a single idea, which makes a huge difference. And with the addition of H2O.ai into Driverless AI into our toolset, I think we are hoping to bring this down even further. But not only that, we are hoping to actually democratize the usage of AI and AI modeling by using larger set of resources within the organization. So it's not limited to machine learning researchers. And that suits really well to our organization, which is effectively really historically embraced the maker culture. So I think, again, what was really interesting for me to see when I joined Goldman Sachs 4 years ago was to see how much the senior people can get into detail, how quickly. As you go higher up in the organization, you still see very senior people who are responsible for tens of thousands of people getting into detail of every single thing you are saying very quickly, which is amazing. So it's really the maker culture that's there in Goldman Sachs historically for a long time. And that's how probably, as you were touching on the maker culture, that's how our teams clicked very quickly. So it's a dialogue maker to maker, and that helped us taking things forward very quickly.
That's what we found as well, right? I look to, as we were trying to look for good metaphors and frameworks to think about how we are building the company. Goldman Sachs, for example, you think of them as partners. Everyone is a partner. And that's kind of what I was describing earlier, is the H2O company as a whole. We think we're partners in building a movement, as opposed to the classic owner, employee, employer, employee mindset. And I think that I kind of was thinking that's kind of roughly, I mean, we were trying to emulate what we heard of, what was at Goldman Sachs. Now we see it more clearly because we are closer to the action.
Yes, as part of this partnership spirit, I think there's a lot of challenging of traditional sort of boundaries as well, in terms of, for example, you were mentioning business requirements that we are implementing. I think that line is blurring. As a team who sits in the revenue division, I think we are already feeling like we are the people who are empowered to create intelligence within the business domain, so expand subject matter expertise and create intelligence using our tools and approaches. So I think that parent-child relationship that's been there in the technology field, where there's business specifications and software developers implement. I think that's changing quite dramatically.
Yep.
And most companies who make big impact are disruptive in nature, so they actually come up with what people should be using. So this is what you need type of approach. I think there's a lot of that boldness in driverless AI as well.
So you touched upon it briefly, and we were chatting a few days ago about the rapid rate at which machine learning algorithms are being evolved and innovated, both from academia. I mean, the latest algorithms come from Canada, from Google, from everywhere in the world. I mean, China is also taking a lot of leapfrogging and innovating in math. So how does an organization at the scale of Goldman Sachs keep up with all these changes happening in machine learning algorithms?
In a very entrepreneurial way, or entrepreneurial way, as you described, I think it's a big ecosystem that allows innovation. Again, historically, that's been in place. I think that's one of the things that helps us keep it going and keeping adaptive over time. So I think it's very distributed, and there are lots of different pockets of people working on something new, and it's a very meritocratic environment where you could just come up with an innovation and make it useful to people. And they will just adopt it and keep using it. If it gets adopted, then it's successful. So there's a lot of that.
How does so let's to give some more clarity to how it could be applied in a more, take a simple example. How does a strategist, so someone is a bond trader or a fixed income or maybe in FX, how do you see someone applying this with taking driverless AI and converting a recipe that's specific? How do you see the whole workflow in a simple example, if you could describe for the audience?
I think there was a period where we worked on the recipes that enabled most of this, right? So it's effectively being able to inject what you already know into the tool and reuse all the components you might already have in place, so that you use driverless AI for only what it focuses on. And for the job it does really, really well. So that could be in the form of the recipes you went through quickly. So transformers, I think they are effectively feature engineering tools. And transformers effectively are where you capture a big part of the subject matter expertise. Because, I mean, given the computational constraints, time and computation constraints, we don't have luxury to, and the size of the data, the overfitting risk, non-stationarity of time series, all these constraints, that means that we need to come up with relevant features, and that requires a lot of subject matter expertise. So that's where you can inject your SME into the workbench, effectively, into the workflow. And of course, there's the models. Again, what models would be suitable for the problem you are trying to solve? Again, is it classical machine learning or deep learning? Again, given the size of the data, what sort of, again, scores you want to use. And that matters a lot as well, because your utility function may not be simple, effectively the inverse of the loss function, like mean square error. It could be much more complex than that. So when you optimize the model, you want multiple constraints to be met based on what part of the business you are sitting really. So it may not be just the accurate predictions, but it could be lots of other things that is important for your business. So by injecting the right scorer for your business, that means you are effectively reflecting the right utility function that matters to your business to train your model.
Yes.
So these are the ways I think we find very useful to customize and put our SAB in the tool.
Yeah, I think that co-creation continues, right? Sort of between us and the customer, but within the customer, between the data scientist, the quant team, and the business team, and the subject matter expert. So data is a team sport, and historically team sports have been very difficult to incentivize, right? How do you incentivize team sports? That's a very difficult organizational problem, and I think something that machine learning forces that almost. If the utility function is good, if the team's made like 10x or 5x of what they were investing in, that goes together, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Changing a little ahead, now that we have something that automates machine learning, where do you see this going in 5 years, in 4 years? When anything long term is always hard, trying to do the prediction, how do you see capital markets taking advantage of this and evolving? Does 3 people with a small fund, can they take on large companies, or as a market maker, of course, you want to incentivize both the buy side and sell side to really get good at it. But how do you see AI transforming capital markets?
Mm-hmm. I think it's a big question. It's maybe the time will show, but I think some promising leads are around risk management, and I'm on the sell side, so we are effectively providing liquidity to the markets as market makers side. So I think risk management is very important for us. So having better tools to do risk management better is going to be a focus area for us for the foreseeable future. And now that we have more powerful statistical tools, we are getting better at that. Of course, there are other use cases where you can effectively look at your operational risk in a proactive way, or client relationships in a proactive way. So rather than waiting for issues to occur there, now we can actually look at the probability of issues occurring conditional on some certain features of the system or of the organization. I think that also helps us to get better at planning for the issues, and also preventing the issues in the first place.
I was going to see if any questions popped up from the audience before I go into my next phase.
I was just curious, how did you get down from the time of like 6 months to 2 weeks? Oh.
Sorry, yes.
Yeah, I was very surprised. Like, how can you actually bring down the research to production?
Could you introduce yourself if you want?
My name is Toki. I'm actually a quant research from JP Morgan. So, also from the sales side. So I was
welcome.
Curious. How do you say curious? Like, how can you? Because I think that's also a similar problem that we suffer from outside. So I want to sort of like know a little bit. Probably not too much into detail, but as much as you can share with us, and how you managed to do that. Yeah.
I think, to be clear, this is effectively just before our experience with H2O. Now we are trying to hopefully step forward even further. But this 6 months to 2 weeks happened over 4 years time horizon. So part of that is the education of the team, of course. To be more result-oriented, and to effectively choose the hypothesis. So if you think about modeling as a journey, right? So you start from a data set, and you end up somewhere. Either you prove that you can't extract information from the data set. There's no predictive power. That's fail quick. So if you want to get there very quickly, or you end up somewhere you have a working model. So to get from the starting point to one of these points as quickly as possible, you are going to take lots of steps. So as a researcher, you will every time you will decide, okay, so which features do I select? So what transformations do I need to use? Are all of them useful? So which models do I start using as a baseline, and then I could keep upgrading them and so on. So all these decisions at every step, the quality of your decision is very important, and you are effectively trying to maximize the value of the test you are going to do next. And if you make the right decisions along the way, then that time duration, I mean, if you think of this as a decision tree, you can easily see that the number of options increase exponentially as you move further along the line. So if you make the right decisions on the decision tree, then you will get to the result exponentially quickly. So I think that's making a lot of difference. How to make good quality decisions, I think that depends on your business, on your organization. That's very specific to your environment, I think.
Everyone has their own unique workflows as well, and you want to have to somehow capture those workflows and optimize them as well, which is to some degree.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. I was going to turn inward and ask, how did you get started? You have a phenomenal background from computer science, and so how did you first get convinced that machine learning is a good direction, and second, how did you convince an organization as large as and smart as Goldman Sachs to do machine learning in capital markets?
Yeah, if you're asking how it all started, I think I'm remembering that happy coincidence where I was elected to participate the International Olympiads in Informatics when I was in high school. That's when I got really exposure. That's way back, by the way, before AI was.
How many Math Olympiad people in the audience? We are certainly hiring, and we all and at every age group.
So I'm from Turkey. So I participated on behalf of Turkey for the first time back then as well. So it was a great experience, and I got early exposure to graph theory, neural networks, various ways of building heuristics, and NP-complete problems. So I really deeply enjoyed all that. And because we were trying to solve NP-complete problems all the time, and that wasn't under pressure, we had to use heuristics, and neural networks was one of the way.
We were talking to the director of Math Science Research Institute this morning with David Eisenberg, who's an algebraic topologist, right? So Ediz was on the call with him. So clearly, the math pedigree is there, right? So that's the beginning of all the journeys.
Yeah. So since that time, I just kept modeling on the side just for fun because I was pretty passionate about the topic. Really, I didn't expect anything to become popular, AI to come to this stage at all, until maybe 5-6 years ago when I realized it's going to change the industry as well, the financial services industry. But I think again, going back to this, what hypothesis to test next and the importance of picking the right and high quality ideas to test, I think that requires a lot of experience. Mm-hmm. So the more you do modeling, the better you get at that. And when AI was under the spotlight, I just emerged there as someone who had 20+ year modeling experience just by pure luck. So I think that helped quite a lot in terms of then spreading that information to the team and getting them up to speed with the same way of thinking.
Yes, so there's a tremendous role luck plays in a lot of these things, as we all know. We are here purely by a random chance, right? Sort of in a very sincere way. How do you see someone new coming into the space? Where can he start? And obviously, there's a lot of subject matter experts for whom machine learning is something that they feel AI is threatening them, right? Sort of. So how do they overcome that fear and start playing?
Yes, embracing this change is the first thing to do, of course, rather than resisting it and trying to basically protect the old way of doing things. That's not going to probably work for too long. And if you are a person who's basically a leader in AI in your organization, then there are lots of challenges to face because of part of this attitude as well sometimes. So I think it's really important to frame the problems in the right way so that when a model solves a problem, its impact on the bottom line is pretty clear. And in that sense, I think probably one really high-level categorization is really useful to make. So using AI models for decision support versus AI models to actually make decisions that are measurable in performance are two different categories. Because creating insight from data and offering that insight to humans so that humans make a decision that's not measurable is not measurable overall as a process. So how can you attribute success to the machine and human, which is not going to be easy. So
we have a saying that says in the discomfort zone is when we are learning, right? Sort of getting into that discomfort zone is actually quite necessary. Question.
I'm Daryl Wise at
Please.
Western International. Daryl Wise at Western International Securities. I love the platform. Thanks, guys, so much for sharing. I'm just curious, when we see AI, it's kind of like a generic formulation for us, because everyone's talking about we are doing an AI, right? We're delivering an artificial technology to help enhance your business. How do we know which one's right and which one's wrong? I mean, it's so much coming at us right now. So how do we grade them? Is there an A grade or a D grade? Just speak to that if you can help us out to try to assess through this world that we're endeavoring on.
I was going to ask a similar framed question, but thank you for asking. I was going to ask him why. I was going to ask him why did you pick H2O, of course, right? Which is perfect. So this is a great way to. It's a much more generic way to answer it. The first thing I would say is that look for transparency, right? Sort of. In many ways, we are water. That's our philosophy. You should be able to see through us, see through the kind of cut through the hype, right? So there's a lot of hype. Hype is actually a real threat for any movement, and AI is also vulnerable for overhyping. So we try to demystify ourselves. We demystify it. We try to get it hands-on first. If I can't demo it, if you can't play with it, I don't even believe it. My team is building it, right? So I will make sure they are building it. I can try it. It's a continuous truth. Data science is about truth, so we can't be telling you something that's not true about our products and about our ecosystem of products. It's not just us. It's an ecosystem thinking as well. No one company can do everything. So we actually partner, we collaborate. Our open source is embedded in lots of other products. And so when someone says we're using H2O machine learning algorithms, we know that they could be able to do X, they may not be able to do Z, right, like image. So we could basically assess how true their claims are based on the components and the ingredients. But eventually putting that together so you can consume it is just as important. But I want to see what Ediz's answer is, because he's probably seen hundreds of these tools and through your evaluations over the last 5-6 years. How do you sift the wheat from the chaff?
There could be other ways, but the way I found really useful is, again, that process where you can test things quickly, because that means it's an internal innovation function like an R&D or AI lab team. It can be very, very small. But if you get used to testing ideas very quickly, that means you can do that for your internal processes or internal models, but also for any other vendor tools you might want to use. Because not one thing is going to tick all the boxes, and people have different needs, different businesses. So I think you need to develop that function that basically is aware of what you need and have the right setup for the problems you have that are ready to be solved. Then you can plug in different solutions in there to see which one works, because it's a very, very new area. I think that's been very effective for us, but again, people might have different ways of doing things. That's what I've seen working.
Is that how you got through the proprietary nature, those kind of barriers of we must build it ourselves, it's not built externally?
So we didn't have any sort of like preconceived idea of whether we should buy or build. This is a question that comes up very frequently in a very granular way in what we do. So if there's a value in buying, we would go and buy and use that. Otherwise, we would build. We are not shy from building anything. We have very
Strong team.
strong engineering capability. So that's how we started, because there wasn't anything obvious that we could buy. So we built that capability over years. But then we realized there are some parts that we can integrate other tools to actually scale up quicker. Because once you know exactly what you need in that space, then you can actually plug that in and take it forward.
Exactly the same answer for the H2O team, right? We build our own H2O gradient boosting methods. It's one of the best one at scale. But then as XGBoost started being made in like across the community in open source, we started participating in it and then started making it even better and then eventually embracing it, bringing it inside the product and making it easy for our customers to use it, right? So it's an ecosystem that's the openness actually will help, right? And that kind of trusting the ecosystem. So we are here to not build empires, but ecosystems, right? So they thrive. So that's kind of the mindset is the outside, inside barriers are changing very fast. Being confident that you could build it if you wanted, but buying is cheaper sometimes, right? So.
I think I'm the last question this evening, so I'll make it quick. I'm Shar Rubio from Rabobank. From a practical implementation standpoint, can you share some quick lessons learned on how you got over any biases on implementation and evaluation processes? I'm curious if you introduced some kind of a QA process before you went full AI, or it's better to integrate that later?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think, it shouldn't come across like we built everything from scratch, right? So if you think about AI models, they are models. Also, they are statistical models. And there's the part that's specific to AI, which makes them AI models. So I think the first two categories have been covered historically for our bank. We have very established compliance controls, monitoring, and model risk controls around all these already that we are reusing for AI models. So for a model to go, for example, Monte Carlo models are statistical models, and they are very heavily used in finance. And if you think about them, every time you use them, you might potentially get slightly different number. I mean, of course, you can then work on how to reproduce this by setting seeds and so on, but they are statistical in nature. So the challenges that this type of models present cover lots of controls that we needed for AI models. So for that type of model to go live from design to actual production, the process we have in place covers so many things that we had to do for AI models already. And then in addition, what is added on top is mostly around overfitting risk, because now with the AI models we have many more parameters. Overfitting risk becomes more important. So effectively, if you are not careful, your AI model might just memorize the past rather than generalizing the dynamics that you observed in the past and predicting the future. So that's a real risk. And given that time series are non-stationary in their nature, so because of the evolving and competing nature of the markets, what's observed in the past might not occur in the future, right? So that's another risk. So all these things make overfitting risk very important. So for that specifically, we had to implement additional controls to test the models every way we can, really. And to put this in context, with the custom recipes in Driverless AI, these are effectively your scorers. So once you look at how your models perform, then you can do extra validations and checks to prevent overfitting.
Great question. How about data? Do you have an ecosystem of data providers that you use? How to pick the right data sets? That's also a big challenge for most of the customers.
Yeah, it's been a huge focus for Goldman Sachs. We have effectively Securities division data office, and we are under the data office effectively, and that's independently a huge focus area for the organization. That's been going on for a while, and that's way bigger than just machine learning.
Of course.
And it's all about the quality of the data. If the data is not right in the first place, you have no chance of doing any data science or machine learning. Absolutely. Very important.
If there's no more questions, I have one last question. Ediz is a multi-instrumentalist, which means he plays many instruments, and I'm not talking about machine learning algorithms. what's your favorite instrument?
I play keyboards and piano. I like this.
Excellent. With that question, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Ediz. Thank you, everyone, for being part of the H2O day, H2O.ai day, the day before AI4 Finance. This is a wonderful, wonderful evening that we all shared. Ediz, thank you so much with your insightful commentary about AI and capital markets. This is an ecosystem thinking. We are big believers in sharing, because AI has historically actually failed us. Turing test is 1930s, right? So we have to work together to make AI work, and that's kind of our mission, is to kind of demystify, and with a lot of humility, I take pride in our team's work here and the community. And New York has been great for us, right? New York not only led our last rounds, London, New York, it also has made us the company we are, right? In many ways, when we had our first hire in New York, Kerry, she was walking the payments up and down and building that grassroots community. So it's quite exciting to see being able to have you guys here at AI4 Finance. Almost a year ago, we were doing a keynote, and in the audience, we had the team, customers in the audience, who then became even more stronger bonds for us. So we are really grateful and thankful for New York and New Yorkers who have supported me in this journey and supported the rest of the team. We opened our offices on 31 and Park Avenue South. So we'll be doing more of these, so at lightweight, and create more conversations. The goal is to talk about each other's bugs and problems, to fix them, and as a whole, the community can evolve and become larger. All life is time series, right? This is a time point, and it's a great milestone for the team H2O, great milestone for the community and the customers. But this is only a beginning. It's a long journey. We're really pleased to have you all in our journey. So thank you so much.
Sometimes I even myself, imagining your pleasure, baby.